The United States had reportedly pressed Ukraine to accept its proposal to end the war with Russia during talks in Geneva.
Now, this is despite Kyiv's protest that the plan conceded too much to Moscow. A senior official quoted in the report said Washington did not directly threaten to cut off aid if Kyiv rejected its proposal, but that Ukraine understood that this was a distinct possibility. The U.S. plan, originally made up of 28 points, would see Ukraine effectively cede its eastern Donetsk and Luhansk regions to Russia and slash the size of its military.
On Sunday, Ukrainian, US and European officials met in Geneva to draft an updated version of the plan to end the war. But the Kremlin responded saying that it would not accept European amendments. The White House has meanwhile pushed back on criticism that US President Donald Trump was favoring Russia in his efforts to end the war.
The idea that the United States of America is not engaging with both sides equally in this war to bring it to an end is a complete and total fallacy.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that there's no meeting scheduled between Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky this week. Earlier reports said that Zelensky could travel to the U.S. to discuss with Trump sensitive aspects of a plan to end the war in Ukraine.
Команда наша доповідала сьогодні вже по новому драфту кроків, і це дійсно правильний підхід. Чутливі речі, сенситивні речі я обговорю з президентом Трампом. Україна ніколи не буде.
Trump initially gave Zelensky until Thursday to respond to the first version of the plan. But German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has thrown doubts on Trump's deadline, saying at an EU-Africa summit in Angola that discussions would be a lengthy, long-lasting process.
The UK Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper said important progress has been made in efforts towards a just and lasting peace, but instead that Russia now needs to come to the table and stop bombardment.
While negotiations continue, powerful explosions rocked Kyiv overnight. Ukraine's energy ministry said a massive attack targeting power facilities was underway as the military reported a barrage of drones and missiles fired at the Ukrainian capital.
And for more on this, we're now being joined by John Erath live from Washington, D.C. He's a senior policy director for the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation. Now, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Now, Washington has not directly said that it's going to cut off aid from Ukraine. But again, Ukraine does know that that's a possibility. Does that leave Ukraine vulnerable to give in to Moscow's, points and, of course, with U.S. imposing it?
The draft peace plan, the 28-point plan, was reading very close to a Russian wish list that there was little chance that Ukraine would accept it at any rate. So the possibility that the U.S. would cut off assistance is not really significant at this point because there is no chance that Ukraine was going to accept that plan. There's a new plan that I understand is now under discussion in Geneva that is much more realistic and has a much greater chance of succeeding. And as I understand it, Ukraine has indicated that there are still important questions. I think we just heard President Zelensky say that. So there is now a possibility, but it was not on the basis of the old 28-point plan.
Mr. Erath, now the reports which are suggesting that U.S. is putting pressure on Ukraine to end its war, and yesterday, that statement which came out from Marco Rubio suggesting that they made tremendous progress. And I'd like to get your opinion on this. For U.S., progress would mean getting that deal done. Would that imply more pressure on Ukraine to just agree to the terms? Because Trump has made it clear many times to Zelensky that you don't hold the cards. Even in the latest post on social media, he mentioned that there was no gratitude from Ukraine. So if now Ukraine says, no, we don't agree to this, there is a lack of gratitude. If they say yes, they're saying yes to a Russian wish list, as you also mentioned earlier. Where does this leave Ukraine?
Even more recently, I think there was a statement from the White House saying that something big could be happening very soon. What the something big is not clear, but I think it would probably be an announcement of some important progress. So it seems like the course of the negotiations has shifted from maximum pressure on Ukraine to working with Ukraine to come up with something that is agreeable to them that can then be presented to Moscow.
So would then progress mean taking a plan to Moscow? Would progress mean getting the war to end as far as the US is concerned? What do they mean when they say progress at this point?
At this point, it would be coming up with something that Ukraine and also, very importantly, the European leadership can accept that can then be presented to Moscow. The original 28-point plan was so close to Mr. Putin's Christmas wish list that I don't think it ever had a realistic chance of being accepted by anyone else.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned European. Now, Kremlin did respond saying that it would not accept European amendments. Then where does it leave the talk? Because you mentioned that, of course, there's a new plan that's in place. This is, of course, comes after the talks in Geneva with the Europeans. Kremlin has responded clearly saying it will not accept the European amendments.
This is standard Russian negotiating practice. They say absolutely not to everything until they are sure that the other side has given all the concessions that they possibly can give. Then they will begin negotiating from that as a starting point. So it's not unexpected. It's the normal thing that one sees when dealing with Russians. And it's something that the Trump administration should have anticipated.
All right, Mr. Edith, thanks so much for joining us here. You've laid it down. You've also explained how Russia would negotiate otherwise always. And let's see how this one goes. As far as US is concerned, they see it as progress to take a new plan to Russia. Whether they agree or not, that remains to be seen. That was John Edith joining us from Washington, D.C. We'll continue to track this closely.